And then also, because it's where so much left political discussion happens, which again, I'm on the same page as you there, that it's like, I think a lot of these things are much more general problems. It's certainly not limited to the left. If you read, for example, John Ronson's book, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, one of his main examples in there is about somebody named Lindsay Stone, who was just like a random private citizen, and like she and her friend would go around to different sites and they'd take jokey photographs. And one of them was at Arlington National Cemetery, and there's a sign there that says silence and respect. And of course, she wasn't actually saying anything, but the gag for the photo was that she had her mouth open, like, right? And and then, you know, she thought that like 10 of her friends maybe would like see it on Facebook, because like most people, she didn't pay very much attention to the photo settings. And she was just like mercilessly dragged about this for like a long time. And in that case, it was mostly by like conservative, patriotic military veterans, you know, but like really like to the point where like every time she had a job interview, she'd be like, okay, if they Googled me, they saw this, you know. She like didn't want to go out on dates because she thought the other person would like Google her and see this. It, you know, just like completely destroyed this person's life for a long time. So it's certainly not limited to the left, but it's especially concerning on the left because we want the left to win. And this kind of thing makes most people just want nothing to do with us.
And not only that, I mean, it's antithetical to what the left is supposed to represent. And what I specifically mean by that, I mean, what is the left fighting for, right?
Right.
We want to make sure that humans live a life of dignity, that they are fed, clothed, that, you know, healthcare is a human right. I mean, we want to make sure that we protect the livelihoods of people, right? I mean, I assume like that's what the whole core of socialism really is. And so why are we joining online groups of people who are calling for individuals to be fired, to lose their livelihoods? Like, how is that okay?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, yeah, either, well, and again, it goes right back to what we were talking about the social media platforms, because there's the version of it where in both cases, there's this like weird impulse to tattle to authority figures that we don't even necessarily think should exist. So whether it's like ratting people out to, you know, to Twitter to try to, you know, to try to get them, you know, banned, or it's ratting people out to their employers, you know, that they've you know, they've tweeted something problematic. And, you know, again, sometimes the things that count as bad here, I mean, all I think is, oh my God, you know, if anybody had like, you know, all the time, you know, I was living in Miami in my 20s, you know, like when I'd like go out to, you know, this like bar in South Miami with my friends and like, just like joke around like human beings do, you know, like if somebody had like a running transcript of that, right, there's like, I'm sure I've said like 1,000 things that are worse than like anything that I've seen people often like get slammed for and get these like severe like social ostracism for online.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had a raver phase. Like I loved going to raves, and I could never, I mean, I'm a little older now, so I probably wouldn't even want to go to a rave. But I just think about like, hey, these nights when, I mean, not during the pandemic, but before, when I wanted to just go out and dance.
Yeah.
And maybe have a drink or two and literally like just let loose and not worry about a thing. All that goes through my mind is everyone has a phone. Everyone is ready and willing to film me in like my worst moment, maybe even take me out of context, put it online, and then I'm done. And look, I'm really lucky that, you know, TYT is where I've grown career-wise, and Cenk Uygur, for whatever anyone might think about him, does not cave in to any type of cancel culture or any type of pressure to fire people because of mistakes they've made. And trust me, there have been, you know, issues in the past. And he's just like, no, I know these people. I work with these people. I'm not turning my back on them. And I felt that same level of respect and I guess loyalty from Michael Brooks.
Yeah,
and I love that about him, because that made me realize, like, you know what, it's okay to kind of critique what we're seeing right now online publicly, you know, and he did it skillfully, strategically, and he's always incredibly nuanced. But I think that if we want to win, which is what he focused on a lot, we need to be appealing to a broader group of people, and we need to understand that we have differences, right? That's not to say that we accept disgusting, you know, racist rhetoric or hateful language. But I do think that, you know, digging through someone's Twitter feed to find, you know, a nasty tweet from 2009, it says you have some problems. Like, you should not be wasting your time doing that. Just keeping it real.
Yeah, no question. And it's particularly self-defeating. Like in Cenk's case, when he, you know, when he was running for office, and people brought back to life things that he had said literally more than a decade ago, as a conservative.
2 decades ago. Yeah.
Like, and so it's like particularly bad because, like, in that case, you know, even beyond any impact on him or his campaign or what that could have accomplished, you know, that like the message you're sending to everybody else, right, you know, is that, hey, all right, let's say that right now you have bad politics and you say dumb things. You don't have the option of seeing the error of your ways, right? Being convinced that we're right about politics, and then like coming to have healthier attitudes about all these other things that like maybe you like said stupid or bigoted things about before, because we are going to literally continue to hold that against you forever. Like, why would you tell people that if you actually wanted to win them over?
Then there's literally no incentive to evolve, to grow, to change. And if the first, you know, few words you hear from someone are incredibly antagonistic, then, you know, you're less willing to open yourself up to their perspective. You know, if someone approach it like that, I think it just makes a lot more sense to try to persuade people to open up a dialogue. And that's not easy to do. It's actually very difficult and uncomfortable at times to engage in some of these, you know, these dialogues about controversial issues, especially about race. But you have to. That's how you win people over. You don't really do anything other than really help our enemies in creating these factions within the left. And that's really what I've been noticing. It's just this, you know, confusion about who our enemies really are. And really, I love that you use this phrase in your latest Jacobin piece, and Michael used it in his book, confused moralism, right? It's confused moralism. In reality, you're creating a situation where people are just fragmented and don't have any connection to one another. And if we keep perpetuating that, I mean, it's going to make accomplishing what we want to accomplish in this country, in this world, a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, no question. That, you know, we need to be able to make some differentiations that, like, sure, there's no moral argument that you can give to Jeff Bezos that's just going to convince him to give away his, I guess now it's $1 trillion, you know, or, you know, turn Amazon into a worker co-op or any of these things, right? Like, that's not going to happen. You have to take it from him. But some random person who, like, you just happen to get into a political argument with, you know, who doesn't have $1 trillion and all the incentives that come from that, is not going to be in that category. Or even somebody who's a media figure, you know, like you need to be able to make some basic distinctions about, okay, who has some like deeply entrenched worldview that's their whole thing, and like short of a life-changing experience, they're not going to agree with you, versus who just disagrees, right? Like sometimes people just disagree because, like, you know, they've had different experiences, they've been exposed to different sources of information, they've heard different arguments, they might even actually start to agree with you if you just kind of like calmly explained your perspective and talk to them like they were a human being, and you know, your opening move wasn't, oh my God, you're a scumbag because you don't have the right take on this yet. And one thing, you brought up our late friend and collaborator, Michael Brooks, and one thing that I really appreciated about him when he talked about this stuff, I think, is maybe because he had this other side, this kind of spiritual side, all of this, right? That like somebody like me, I'm very comfortable like making like a strategic argument that all these things are counterproductive, right? But like he was much more comfortable just like being an unapologetic hippie about it and just talking about, just compassion and how people can change and all this stuff that's really good and really true and really valuable. But like, not everybody can maybe as equally access that kind of language or, think that way or talk that way. And it's one of many like really valuable things that I think that he, that he brought to what he did, that he brought to the critique that he certainly made on these issues, but also just in general, right? Because I think that that's another thing where most people, aren't going to have the, necessarily the same hangups about that stuff that some of us are, that like, I think most people can kind of see the power in just sort of saying like, hey, don't be like this, right? Like that this isn't how we want to be, right? And of course it also ties into the larger thing you're talking about, because this isn't what we're fighting for in the first place, right? That like we don't want to like, in a way, like this whole thing where we should just constantly be surveilling each other to see if like anybody ever had a bad take or told a tasteless joke or anything like that. Like, in a way, like this really gets into this way of thinking about what's wrong with society that's like would be a much more natural fit for like conservatives who think that, oh, if there's crime and other social problems, it's because people have like bad characters. If our whole thing is that we want to, well, again, reach, go back to Michael, be ruthless with systems and kind to people, that we think that, no, it's not just because like some people are just randomly bad people or they have bad culture or anything like this, but that there are bad systems in place, that lead to outcomes that we don't like. And that what we want is not to try to perfect individuals, right? To like reach in and like change the thoughts in your head so you're always thinking correct things and, having the right attitude towards everything. What we want is to create a society in which everybody can have their basic needs met and people can have more control over their lives, both at work and everywhere else, and have honestly more privacy. So you can, because the more privacy that you have, the more of a sense of just a almost like a cultural safety net, that like that you understand that everybody's going to relate to you as a human being and is not going to decide that whatever you were your worst moment is what defines you forever, right? Like that's part of what we want for everybody, which is why we're doing all of this in the first place.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really great way to put it. And also, I think a really great way to start thinking about this is, practice some skepticism when you come across the latest outrage on Twitter, right? And ask yourself, okay, could there potentially be some motivations behind publishing this like negative article on this person? Because I can tell you from personal experience, you brought up the blogs that Cenk wrote literally 20 to 25 years ago. And right before they were published and, the outrage began, this was about 2 years ago, I received an email from a reporter who wanted me to comment on the environment at TYT. And I think the wording was, have you had any experiences with Cenk Uygur fostering an environment of misogyny at TYT? So I actually responded back and I was like, well, to tell you the truth, I really feel that Cenk has empowered me to speak my mind. I have a very strong voice here. I never feel like I have to agree with him. I've disagreed with him many times with, no retaliation. Like it was just, and that's literally my experience. I mean, I started there doing marketing. I mean, I had no experience in marketing. I can't believe he hired me for that. But he saw I was a hard worker. And then all of a sudden I'm doing one segment a day and I'm doing like an hour on celebrity gossip. But Cenk was open-minded enough to have me constantly challenge him, and give me the position that I felt I deserved. So now I've like taken over the main show and I'm like the lead host and all of that. And a misogynistic guy doesn't do that. I mean, we disagree and argue all, but anyway, the reason why I'm giving you all this background is because he never published my statement. That statement was never published because what he was doing was politically motivated. And
Yeah.
it was just so frustrating to see that. And it was frustrating to see people turn their backs on Cenk so easily, just based on, again, blogs he had written 20 to 25 years ago. And we really need to practice a little bit of humility and think about us as college students, for instance, and, the dialogue we engaged in, the activities we participated in. I don't think that they're indicative of who we are as people. I think that people have the capacity to evolve and change and to better themselves. I mean, just in the last 3 years, I've changed considerably on a number of different issues, politically, even to some extent spiritually, although I still, identify as an atheist, but Michael's kind of opened me up to that a little bit. And I'm at least looking into it. Like, I just feel like every year I'm growing, and we should want that. We should incentivize that. And right now, with some portion of the left, we're doing the opposite.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the one thing that that I'd add to that is I think that it's probably hardest but most useful to try to get into that habit, as best we can, right? Of just like approaching some of this stuff with skepticism, thinking, okay, you heard something horrible about somebody, okay, maybe, right? But I'm not going to like jump on it and, cancel my support for somebody's campaign or whatever instantly because of it. I'm going to think about if there's like an innocent thing that might be put in a bad light here. And it's hardest to do that when you maybe like dislike somebody, which you might for all kinds of reasons, right? That in the decades, right, since he's politically evolved, since he wrote those blogs, right, Cenk has done commentary on tons of things that I'm sure tons of people have all sorts of reasons to disagree with, right? That like, and oftentimes, people form, these parasocial relationships with media figures that can lead to like, to like really feeling connected to them. That can also lead to like, just like deciding that like somebody who has enough takes that you dislike, like is just a terrible person. But if you can generally get in the habit of not like being quite such an easy mark for this stuff, even for the people that you don't necessarily like, then we're all going to be much better off. And to maybe circle back and close on this thing, about like the Morsi thing, the Alex Morse thing, right? Or even like, I remember several months ago when things were looking much more politically optimistic, when Joe Rogan said he was going to vote for Bernie Sanders, and people did, what they do and come up with like a gag reel of all the worst things that Rogan has ever said, and said, how dare you, accept the support from this terrible person. And in both cases, right, both that and the Morsi one were cases where people who were centrists, who had a political reason to want to do this, right, were very consciously stirring the pot to try to use this, against the left. And so then it's easy to kind of say, oh, okay, so therefore this one isn't really on us, right? This is on these like external bad actors who have a bad agenda. But then my question is, okay, but in both cases, why did so many people who really are on the left go along with it, right? And I think that that's the way that maybe the same culture of sort of personalized moralistic nonsense that leads to people hearing Adolf Reed say that we should focus on poverty rather than racial disparities in poverty, even while being real about the racial history that led to those disparities. And here, oh, so what you're saying is that racism doesn't matter, or that leads to people being quite such easy marks for the Alex Morris thing, right? That like this stuff is not just like a bad way to relate to people, a bad way to go through life, although it's certainly all that, right? You know, but it's also something that really leaves us open to, makes us very weak and very, very attackable in ways that I think a version of the left that got over some of this stuff really wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think we also need to understand what a threat the left is to moneyed interests. And I just think that there needs to be a fundamental understanding that when you threaten the wealth and power of people who have enjoyed that wealth and power for so long, they will do anything and everything to destroy you, to divide you. And the fact that we are falling for their, disgusting, cynical strategies makes me very sad. It's sad to see it over and over and over again. And, I'm sure people are going to see this and cancel me, and okay, that's fine. But then what do you accomplish? Like, what is the end goal? And it might trigger something in your brain, the same way real activism and real organizing does. But in reality, you've accomplished nothing. And what we've seen year after year after year on every single issue, but since, civil unrest and race is really front and center right now, on race in particular, have we seen improvements on how Black people are treated in this country, or an improvement in their living conditions? Of course not. When it comes to actually changing and fundamentally restructuring the system that actually would lead to significant benefits, not just in their lives, but in everyone's lives, we're getting all this like superficial stuff that gives you like the cute aesthetics of change. And I'm sick of that. I'm really sick of that. I'm tired of them basically telling me like, oh no, we decided to pardon one person from prison and we publicized the hell out of it, and thus we've done criminal justice reform.
Right.
No,
right.
that's I'm
We've
sick
still
of that
got the
stuff.
highest incarceration rate in the world, but like we let out this person. We still have this incredibly militarized style of policing, but don't worry, right? Any athletic event, even a hockey game, will have Black Lives Matter, logos on it. It's basically a situation where not only is there an attempt to kind of placate discontent with real problems, with really empty symbolism, but all too often we're falling for it, right? That like people really who identify with movements to change these things are really focused on those symbolic victories, right? We can't get like we're not going to actually change the underlying proportionate like distribution of wealth and power that disproportionately hurts Black people, but we can get this street sign changed. We can get this company to make some PR gesture of putting up Black Lives Matter at their events. We can get this company to fire somebody who said something stupid on Twitter, and all of that really leaves them off the hook, because if all we're essentially demanding from people who have power is that they make the occasional gesture in the direction of caring about this stuff, then really their only question is going to be, okay, but like, you're not coming for any of the money, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's not about, shop signs and public statements. And look, I'm not minimizing the importance of renaming military bases that honor Confederate soldiers, right? But what my point is,
we shouldn't
is
have military bases named after Confederate soldiers, but it's also a little disturbing that was packaged together with giving even more money to the military, and it was still treated as some sort of progressive victory.
But think about that for a second, because it was so symbolic of how everything is going down right now in the United States, right? Because, and it was all like summarized in one tweet. I think I retweeted it. It was something along the lines of military bases will be renamed, and Congress has approved increased military budget. But I mean, think about how, while we might rename bases, we're bombing and murdering Black and brown civilians throughout the world right now. Like that is what we do. We murder people. Okay.
Yeah,
So
you imagine like somebody in Yemen, like huddling like in a basement because there's bombing going on, maybe by the Saudis, but with American planes refueled at American bases, like reassuring their family members that don't worry, right? Like these bases
right.
where they're refueling don't have those terrible offensive names anymore.
Look at what we just did in Bolivia. I mean, we orchestrated a coup in Bolivia, and that has led to utter devastation for the Native community there. It's just indigenous community. I'm sorry about that. For the indigenous community there. And was there any actual, example of like a democratic process following the ouster of, their leader? No, Evo Morales is gone, but now you have this right-wing government that's been incredibly brutal to, the indigenous community.
And keeps on announcing that they can't have elections because of coronavirus.
I mean, it's just, we need to take a step back and stop focusing on demanding like this facade. Like we're asking for it, we need to change the actual system, and we need to like restructure all of it. Otherwise we're just playing the same game that honestly leads to more suffering, more pain, more poverty, more disenfranchisement, more division among races, more division within like the same political party or within the same movement. I mean, we're so fragmented, so divided because the ruling class, the elite class, know how to play us, and we fall for it all the time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anna. Really appreciate the conversation. Hope you come back soon.
Of course, I loved it. Thank you, and congratulations on your show. I absolutely love it.